All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Cindy Black. I'm the Executive Director of Fixed Democracy First, and you are at our weekly Democracy Happy Hour. I have a little introduction for both of them, and then I'm going to turn it over to them to share on the topic, the Wise Democracy Project, a rebirth of We the People. So Jim Ruff, co-founder of the Center for Wise Democracy, is a social innovator and author of the 2002 book, Society's Breakthrough, Releasing Essential Wisdom and Virtue in All People. In the early 1980s, Jim developed dynamic facilitation, a way to facilitate individuals and groups to face impossible seeming problems creatively and achieve breakthroughs. This led to the Wisdom Council process, a way to dynamically facilitate large systems of people to face impossible seeming problems, achieving breakthrough progress, and by doing so establish a new form of democratic governments capable of addressing and solving money in politics, corruption in the Supreme Court, outdated constitutional provisions like the Electoral College, and other issues facing democracy. Welcome, Jim. And then Zachary Weaver is president of the Rotaract Global Service Club and director of Democracy in a Box, a program linking Rotary's four-way tests with civic participation. Through his Rotary's Club 47817 Global Success Program, he advances partnerships across the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals with the focus on empowering youth leadership to build a thriving future. Welcome, Zachary. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Cindy.
much for having us, Cindy. And as always, thank you for the impressive and impactful rundown of the news.
Yes.
I tell everyone about it. So I'm gonna share my screen and then turn it over to you, Jim.
So I wanted to, one of the things that amazes me about the strategy that we're offering is when we do, I have people all around me, friends, whatever, that don't seem to acknowledge that there's a solution strategy here. It's like, I've been working on this for 30 years and it's like so many times they say there's nothing we can do. What can we do about these problems? We have to wait the next election, and we don't even know that that's going to happen via. And I'm like, hey, here's an answer, but it's really difficult. So I guess one of the goals today is that everybody leaves here with the idea, oh, okay, here's an answer. This is a possibility. Um, So I would like to start out by telling a little of my history of how coming to this, and then we'll have maybe a metaphor. That I want to share about also, and then just kind of glide into it a little bit. But I was, seeking personal transformation, and I got involved with lots of groups, especially Creative Initiative Foundation and the Guild for Psychological Studies and Jungian analysis, that kind of thing. And then I got really interested in solving problems creatively, Creative Problem Solving Institute. And I ended up being on the faculty there for about 12 years. And and it's just awesome people that we would meet every year. And they just incredible people, very smart, brilliant. And then I was a consultant in a sawmill, and I talked management into giving me a chance to just help these employees in the same in this way. I wanted, and they gave it to me. So I had sort of a laboratory uh, that was real people working in a sawmill to practice what I was coming up with. And I was coming up with a way of facilitating people to solve impossible to solve problems. And I would tell the employees, oh yeah, just work on whatever you think is impossible that you really want to solve, and we'll make headway. And I just said that, hoping that would be true, and it was true. And the groups, and actually the mill transformed. There's some videos on our website where we talk to some of the leaders and so forth at the sawmill, reminiscing about how amazing it was. So so I had that, and then I started teaching seminars um, on on this process. I call that dynamic facilitation around the world. And people would come into the seminars and they would work on problems of society. And they would have breakthroughs. And I didn't know what to do. They would go back to their work and I would be holding this basket of breakthroughs, wondering, what the heck am I going to do with these? This is incredible. And then one night in 1993, it all kind of came together for me that, yeah, our system is completely broken. It can't work into the future. And here's how to fix it. Here's how to transform it. At the time, I thought it required a constitutional amendment, and I wrote a book about it, Society's Breakthrough, Releasing Essential Wisdom and Virtue in All the People. And at the time, I also started with my wife and others, the Center for Wise Democracy, with the idea of bringing this into the world. Now, this is about how do we fix our broken democracy 20 years before we now have a broken democracy. I mean, in other words, our system can't work. It isn't a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. How do we actually go forward with that? But I thought at the time it required a constitutional amendment, and went to keep teaching the seminars like in Europe and so forth. In the US, we were so wedded to the Constitution, we couldn't imagine anything wrong with our Constitution, that our system would need a constitutional amendment, A, and B, no one believed a constitutional amendment could ever happen. But anyway, when I went to Europe and taught seminars, people there were nodding and, thinking this is great. And 2 states of Austria have since amended their constitutions to include this, or approximation of it. So, and then the magic piece that happened, I thought at the time that the magic was in the Constitution and amending it. But what we learned as we practiced and we tried experiments and they had adoptions in Europe, is we realized that it isn't about a constitutional amendment, that it's possible to have a we the people that we can just facilitate. The magic sauce for this was in a particular kind of thinking that we all know exists. We all know that it's possible to have people just, especially in a crisis where we rise to the occasion, we face these impossible messes, and we rise to the occasion, and we work together, and we listen to one another, and we have breakthroughs, and we know that where the breakthrough's a better result than anybody could have imagined. I mean, that kind of conversation exists. And we aspire to it, but we don't have a word for it. So we use words like deliberation, discussion, debate, dialogue. None of those words actually apply. And a little later, we're going to show a scholar in 1918 talking about this quality of conversation. So we'll have that. But for right now, our plan, Zachary and I, is for you. We want you to make the biggest wish you possibly can make about American democracy, and we think that this will impress you. That, oh my goodness, yes, this would transform. This would support that wish. This would leap it ahead. And so, if you could just take a minute and type into the chat your biggest wish for American democracy, and start it with "I wish," so we can sort these out. Zachary was thinking of using AI to grab them, but maybe just take a minute and type into the chat, "I wish," whatever.
I think it's just going to take a couple minutes for people to actually type.
And then we'll take a look at the wishes at the end. And so,
Okay.
Jim, if you want,
Yeah.
you can go to the next. I'll
Okay,
take you to
good.
the next part.
Yeah, good plan. Okay. So what I'd like to do is talk about, I'd like to come back to a metaphor that we all know of the blind men and the elephant, or the blind, obviously that's not politically correct anymore, but so at least we have, but we're imagining now that the elephant is causing all kinds of problems for the villagers. And the trunk is thrashing the trees, the legs are stomping up and down on the vegetables. And when the blind men show up, now it isn't just a communication problem. It's like, no, I'm working on this one problem here. It's a separate problem, seemingly separate problem. And the I don't like referring to them as blind men. The blindfolded men start, they become experts in their field. They start to work on this one problem, this leg going up and down, and they build little barriers to make sure that that won't affect anything. And the same thing with the trunk. You see this snake thing, and so you start spraying poisons and so forth. And these experts, what they're going to tell you is that we've studied this problem. There are no easy answers. That's what they all say. And you'll hear it. You'll hear this all the time of people studying democracy problems. There are no easy answers. As soon as you hear that, I want you to trigger in your mind that, wait a minute, are they going to tell us we don't have creativity? We can't think holistically? So anyway, because when there's a prospect of seeing the elephant, well, heck, it's funny, the problem just got bigger, but we all feel more empowered. It's like, oh, now we have things to do. We can do things. Like one just simple answer is to take some hay and put it aside over in front of the elephant somewhere and just move the elephant away from these problems. And now we're solving all the problems at once in a very simple way. And it's not seeable. I mean, it's a normal people can't see it. The experts are going to still say, oh, well, we did it somehow. Not sure what we did, or something happened, whatever. I mean, the entire field of political science is not open, I don't think. They're thinking reductively, and they're not going to see this as a possibility. But normal people, I think, can step back and see the elephant and realize, oh, well, we have all these. There's all possible. One possibility is just moving the hay solution. So basically, this is the situation in our system. We have all these problems coming up, all kinds of problems, just poverty and homelessness and partisan gridlock and just the partisan gulf. All these things look like they're independent problems and we need to solve them separately. But the reality is, and this is what I discovered in the seminars, is that the groups that would work on these different problems would come to the same realization often. Hey, this problem isn't caused by greedy CEOs. It's not caused by bad people. It's not caused by greed. It's caused by our system. Our system structures this. And then, so how do we shake out of this? What is the hay solution, if you will, for our system? And to me, that is basically, there is no collective thinking. There's no collective intelligence. I mean, it was collectively intelligent when it was first designed in the 18th century because we had just independent farmers and fishers and just shopkeepers and things. So there was no multinational corporations and whatnot. So there was this ability to have a system based on competition and to have the competition be somewhat fair and generate a measure of collective intelligence. But now now we're interdependent. It's not possible to have a system based on competition. So one of the key people for me, and it just gave me so much excitement when I discovered her, is Mary Parker Follett. You may have heard of her. She published in 1918 The New State. And Zachary and I think it's neat to leverage off what she said, because she's saying this way back then, that the very essence and substance of democracy is the creating of the collective will. Without this activity, the forms of democracy that we have are useless, and the aims of democracy are always unfulfilled. There is the Hay solution we're talking about is it possible for us to facilitate into existence this conversation, this we the people conversation, by which the collective will gets established, that we all nod and we get smiled and we realize that each of us has contributed to this, and so it's that special kind of conversation. And when she talks about this quality of conversation, she says, when the conditions for collective thinking are more or less fulfilled, then we call it facilitation, then the expansion of life will begin. And that's what we think too. A collective thought is one evolved by a collective process. The essential feature of a common thought is not that it's held in common, but that it has been produced in common. And the core of the social process is not likeness, but the harmonizing of difference through interpenetration. That's what she calls it. In other words, the process is not that merely of accepting or rejecting, which is what we do when we vote. It is bound up in the interknitting. Then I go forth a new creature. She's saying that this collective thinking process redefines me. I go forth a new creature, but to what do I go forth? Always to a new group, to a new society. It's a redefining of our society. And so it's unfair that the word democracy has been taken. They use it for constitutional republic, but that's what so we're calling it a wise democracy. Of, by, for the people, with wisdom as the collective result. So way back, I got tired of trying to use the technology. I finally just gave up and drew it. Okay, in 1787, there was a collective thinking moment. Surprise, surprise, it's like I can't find another example of a large-scale collective thinking moment. In other words, okay, it was just 55 white guys, property, whatever, but they set in motion a whole system conversation where after the Bill of Rights was passed, it was impossible to find anyone that didn't say, yeah, let's try this new system. So it was a we the people, and they invented this term, we the people, just by accident in saying that. So we the people is not the people. It's not just lots of people. It's not all the people that are good and think nicely and things. No, it's all of us in one conversation where our difference is valued. We come up with shared understandings of truth, of vision, and of strategy. And we share that we provide responsible leadership to government and the economy, to corporations, etc. So basically we originally had this, and they defined the word we the people, and then you and I have been born into this box where there is no collective thinking. And in fact, there's not even the quality of thinking that we have given the name choice creating to. It's not decision making. This whole box that we've been born into is about decision making. And that's judgment. That's about using the left side of the brain, judgment. And there's another kind of conversation that we were talking about, that's ideal, that Mary Parker Follett was pointing to, that's creative and collaborative, and we call it choice creating. We've given it a name. And it's possible, we believe, in the Wise Democracy Project to facilitate the people to come together in separate conversations and create a legitimate we the people. And so what we're really doing is there's a new ultimate authority that you and I can create. We can create today's we the people that actually is the authority. And we start our system, our strategy for doing this is what we call the Wisdom Council process. And and we can do this. We don't need anybody's permission. We randomly select from the national public just 12 to 16 people. And we do this monthly. And we dynamically facilitate those people into the spirit of choice creating so that they face some impossible seeming issue. And they walk out of the room, and we've done this many times, they're excited because they all reached unity. And when they present to the audience, okay, sometimes it's really polarized audience, but most of the time it's just people. They present to the people, not to the elected officials. Really good processes are out there like the Citizens Assembly. It's about presenting to the elected officials. This presents to the people as a reflection, not a proposal. And what we say in the audience is we say, well, yeah, I think so, or maybe, I'm not sure, I don't know if I like this part, whatever. In other words, the point is to start the national we the people conversation. And then the next month, a new group happens, and the next month in a different place in Savannah, Georgia, and the next place is in Santa Cruz, and the next place is in Ashland, Virginia, or Ashland, Oregon. I mean, so we randomly select people, and it's possible for us at each locality to organize what we call resonance gatherings to hear this sequence of national wisdom councils. And when they present to the audience, you get random people and they present to an audience. The audience generally says, yeah, why aren't we doing that? And if the more people we get, the more that becomes not just a symbol of we the people, it becomes a legitimate we the people. So it starts out down here at the bottom, these little circles, they start out as symbolic representations of we the people, but at some point we look around because we're getting more and more people involved, and we realize we are we the people. We are the ultimate authority in this system. There's no higher authority than all of us reaching unity. That's what it gets to. And now you can switch it, Zach. And this we the people here's the problem we have, okay? We're in this constitutional republic that we were born into. And every positive change, like we've talked about, that we can think of, proportional voting, proportional representation, ranked choice voting, blah, 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 all these wonderful we need tos are blocked. Our system has been bought. It's toast. You can't find the will of the people in that. It's just special interests battling. But you and I can facilitate into existence a legitimate we the people. And it, like I say, it grows with time and it gets exciting, more exciting as the time goes on. But the first thing is we want to stop the rise to autocracy. Okay, we're slipping back. Well, we the people can do this. We can block that. And we want to build and improve our constitutional republic, our structures. Well, they're blocked. But we the people can engineer that to happen. We can choose. We can follow up on who's elect. We can change the voting system. We can change the whole thing. And then, but the real deal is just this process has us to escape the pseudo reality that those are the only two possibilities, the autocracy and the what they call the democracy. No, 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 that's not what's going on. There's a whole nother world that we need to get to that Mary Parker Follett has talked about. It's we can start living now and go to this place where we, the people, we can escape the matrix and establish a new system of wise democracy. And this of, by, for the people, plus wisdom. So I forget where we are next. I think I turned it over to you. Oh, okay. Well, so we have lots of examples. A lot of the big examples are in Europe. Okay, well, or somewhere. The first one on the left is Zach loves this story. This guy talking was just one of the randomly selected people, and he got so excited he ran for mayor of Victoria here in British Columbia. Uh, and then the one down below is in Austria. It's Manfred is one of our stars. He was the head of the Office of Future Related Issues. So they had an Office of Future Related Issues, and their job was to seek out new ideas that could be implemented. And he did that, and he's the guy that got these things into the amendment to the Constitution and such, and Vorarlberg. All right, and then we had a high-profile example. We used it was at the largest concentration camp in Austria. So and we have I think you put it. Thank you. Somebody put it in the chat. You can look up the story. So okay, so I think I'm done. Zach, did I give you enough time? I hope.
Yes, thank you so much, Jim. I'm always so inspired by your passion, and thank you all for being here. I just wanted to share my story of how I got involved a little bit. So I think you have all seen the SDGs and the background behind me, and so I'm always on the lookout for solutions that will help us achieve the SDGs sooner. And so in November of 2024, I met Jim Ruff through the Intermovement Impact Project, and he sent me a recording of his last presentation at Fix Democracy First. So it's really cool to be here. And I was really captivated by the way he described dynamic facilitation, which is the method he uses for facilitating these conversations. And in it, there are 4 charts, and they're problem statements, solutions, concerns, and data. And when you bring people into this room, they can just show up as they are. They don't need any prep or any training. And everything that they say has a place on these charts. And they're working on a problem together. And so I love, ways to have better conversations. And this just seemed to me like one of the most amazing ways to have a conversation where you're getting something really productive out of it. And then, like Jim said, they come to a shared perspective at the end of it. At the conclusion of it, there's always things that have been shared that everyone says, oh, yes, we should move forward with this. So I learned the facilitation method. I've been adapting it to Zoom. And of course, it's much better in person. But what I find is that even, in a diminished form, it is still just one of the most amazing ways to have a conversation that I've found. And we had one on how to address the role of money in politics just recently. And I was just so impressed with the way, just in 2 hours, a small group of people built a lot of energy around what they wanted to do next. So it's such an empowering process. And then there's been the success in Austria using it, and now we want to use it here to have a national conversation on, where we are working together to solve our greatest challenges. So some of what got me excited, Jim has touched on this, but it's this upstream solution that we already have all the pieces for, and there's no legislation needed for us to start doing it. And it's just enormously empowering to people. As Jim said, it helps us realize our authority, and I feel like it makes us not just participants in our democracy, but creators of our democracy. And so
Right.
I'm going to go on here. Jim laid this out and I really like it. And oh, I've been loving all of the wishes that everyone has been putting in the chat. And I thank you so much for dedicating your time. Some people are really, you made an all-encompassing wish. I saw a lot about money in politics, getting rid of the electoral college. There's, I wish that all people would be able to thrive and have their basic needs met. So there's just this beautiful range of wishes, and I'm gonna download this and to save this chat to be inspired by as I move forward. But so now a question is, can this Wise Democracies project support your wish for democracy? We feel like adding this conversation can do that because it can facilitate this voice of we the people and be an opportunity for one of the things I find is there's we have these monster problems, as Jim said. There's no one to take them on. We have to kind of build up from the grassroots. But there's an authority of the people where we can say, okay, here are our greatest challenges. Let's have a conversation about it. And it turns, as Jim said, our competition-based system into a conversation-based system. So I love how he says, we provide wise leadership to government, corporations, philanthropies, NGOs, and the culture through, that would be new policy that's in the public interest. This adds the missing Lead the People conversation, and it can restructure our existing governments and economics, creating new motivations. And it's elevating individuals to enjoy new levels of empowerment, healing, and freedom and belonging. So co-creating the spirit of community and mutual support. And I can really feel that every time I'm in a dynamic facilitation, session. So I move on to what you can do, actions you can take. You can join the conversation. You can reach out at our email addresses. I'll put those in the chat as well. And also you can carry this with you. So the next time you're in a conversation and someone says, there's nothing we can do, you might be able to give them some hope saying, I know a group that's working on a holistic solution. And you can go to wisedemocracy.org to check it out more. And also, if anyone would like to join in a conversation, I'm testing this out on Zoom, would love to have you participate, or if somebody wants to set up a conversation in your local area, we can work with you to find a dynamic facilitator to help you do that. So thank you all so much. I will end with our Mary Parker Follett quote: the very essence and substance of democracy is the creating of the collective will. And I'll take questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, or you can go ahead and put it in the chat. While we're waiting for people to raise their hand, I do have a question. So, I've heard a lot about this over the years, or a couple years from Jim in different capacities. But how do you move this forward in implementation on a larger scale?
Well, we start at scale. So randomly selecting from the total national population. So we generate a legitimate symbol of the people, and they go into a small group or a room for a day and a half or 2 days, and they come out with a unified perspective. And so that is a symbol of we the people. Now, we start small, probably, but we have a live audience. So let's say we talk the people of Santa Cruz, California, into organizing the first one. And they set up, so the Wisdom Council comes to a Santa Cruz audience, but they're a national random selection. And hopefully we have a web presence. And at some point, the next month, maybe the month after that, we have maybe a media partner that wants to get involved and broadcast it. And so what we're doing is we're expecting that we aren't going to get the money to just start this at big, but we can start it small in one location with a group where I wish the indivisible people, or maybe the Braver Angel group in Seattle. Cass, my wife and I went to visit them this weekend. If we can stimulate a local group to get interested and start organizing that, we're expecting then these wisdom council, these wise democracy councils can go from one city to the next to the next, and each time we'll build a larger, bigger audience. We expect the audience, not an audience, the participators to grow each time, so exponentially, because we'll have people. It's fun to be in this conversation. It's the conversation we're all dying to get into. Like, how is it that my voice can be heard, and then we can add to the conversation? So when the Wisdom Council speaks, there are these resonance gatherings where people can talk, and then there are responder gatherings where special interests can meet and send their perspectives in. So we hope to just sneak it into the public before they know what's happening. I shouldn't say that, but I think that's what it's going to amount to.
As a follow-up question, I know this isn't exactly like civic assemblies, which is a little different, but it seems like this would be a good fit to work with some of those groups like Civic Genius and some of the others, because this seems like it would align with some of their goals and missions to have more discussion, because that's what you're talking about. You're having discussion to be able to solve problems and come up with solutions.
It's a magical kind of discussion, actually. The word discussion has a meaning. I mean, the root of the word is cushion, percussion, concussion. It means bang together in the root. All these words that we use for conversations, they have their meaning, and they aren't what we're talking about. So it became clear that, like what Mary Parker Follett was talking about, that we need a definition of that. We need to define that form of conversation. And so the whole field of political science is interested in deliberation. That's their go-to form of conversation, trying to be more rational, trying to push away the emotional side. What we're wanting to do is set up the kind of conversation that takes the whole person, the emotional sides, everything, and has them just be completely free. So, like Zachary put up those charts, they can say whatever they want. They can be angry. They can say, this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. That's fine. We help them frame it as a concern. We help them turn to see what they're really wanting to have happen. Help them find what their data is. In other words, we just go with the energy, and it comes out in a unity that is not deliberative. So this is one of the big struggles that we have, Cindy, is that we talk to so many of these organizations wanting to link with them, but they're not seeing. They already have their way of talking. They already have their list of their training programs, their how to do it, and we're not. So we're very complementary, but it's really murder to link with them.
Zachary?
I just want to jump in on that quickly. I build on the citizen assembly part because the way that this was used in Austria, or the way it got introduced there, was because there was a conservative governor in Austria who then said, "I love this citizens assembly thing. I want something like it, but we can't afford to do that every time we want to have one of these conversations." And so he sent somebody out in search of something else. And that's how they found Jim's process. And so I think you're absolutely right. This could be an amazing option for groups working on citizens assemblies to do something, that might be a little bit lighter weight, or something that's a little easier to start. And so, we're working now. That's one of the reasons I'm adapting it to Zoom, is to make it so that the process can be a little more tangible and touchable for people who want to experience it.
Yeah. All right, let's take a couple of questions. We'll start with Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I had the same question I had about citizen assemblies and I think this focuses on a big problem that divides us is how on earth do you get people to agree on a fact base?
Yes, this is not agree. We don't use the word agree at all. When you dynamically facilitate, one of the questions we ask people is, did you hear the word agree or disagree in this conversation? And usually the answer is no. They're not thinking that way. We have structured a system that has us thinking reductively in this supposedly rational way that's yes, no, all based on judgment. And what we're doing is just helping people talk in a natural way so that they don't realize they don't realize they just every time they leave the wisdom council they say things like, wow, how did you get these people? How could these people come together? They don't realize it's the process. So we're helping people to stay in a creative collaborative zone that we call choice creating, not decision making.
That's exactly my next question. I kind of sensed that that distinction is really important to understanding what you're talking about. And I'd like to have you elaborate that on it a little bit more, because it sounds, at first blush, it sounds like really not resolving things.
Well, what happens in a crisis is that there's this chance of change that can come along in a crisis where everybody goes, oh shit, we can't do any of that. We just have to work together and figure things out. And turns out people are actually very caring. They want to help one another. Like when there's a big catastrophe, everybody's supporting one another and taking care. And all these reasons for not doing that are in our system. And so what we have is a way to bring people to that crisis type thinking because that's what we're doing. We're facing the impossible seeming problems that are crises. We have crises all around us. It's just that we're not facing them. And we're helping people to tackle one of those crisis issues, not in here are the experts telling you the options and then you weigh the options. We're not doing that. We're saying, just talk and we'll help you. We'll help you come to some creative resolution just because by reflecting, really, it's a lot of reflection. And people walk away excited by the shifts and breakthroughs that they've had, because that's the best way to reach unity, not through agreeing, but through a shift and a breakthrough. When you have a breakthrough, you look around and you realize, wait a minute, well, that's better than what I walked in that room with. And the others all say the same thing. So what we want is a breakthrough. We want to have a breakthrough process where we're all looking at one another and appreciating all the difference and all the value that they brought.
All right. Are you done, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ken.
So, Susan, did you still have a question? I see you had your hand up. No? Okay, so we'll take a question in the chat from Dwight. And I had this too, is how would the council deal with a negative dogmatic bully or anybody who's negative or trying to, sabotage maybe the discussion?
Yeah, we either get somebody like that, or we get somebody who's cognitively disabled, or somebody who's just I don't know, they're just stuck, from the belief system or something. But what happens is that we're asking people we call it the purge, for instance. We ask each person to purge their answer. So if somebody is trying to be a bully or something, you say, oh, okay, so you have this concern, you think this process doesn't work, or that person's whatever. So what answer? If we go to the end of the meeting and the best result happened, what would that result be? Tell us your answer right now. And then they put it up there, and turns out what happens often is that it's just the people, it just kind of goes away. We had one wisdom council in Asheville, uh, North Carolina. Yeah, and the first person that spoke says the problem's gays. Every problem we have is about gays. They're here and they're there and whatever. And he was a fundamental something, and we wrote down everything he said. Great, good, whatever. And then somebody says, "Well, I don't think so," and somebody else says, "Well, no, of course not." And in other words, we end up with this puzzle that we're all working on together. Nobody gets a no. We just keep adding what they're saying, and eventually he came around. Everybody came around to understanding that this is we need a new system of governance. Is what they came up with. They were thinking of a parallel system of governance, but it was exciting. But he didn't. Then afterwards, we have the presentation to the community. He didn't come, so we're just assuming we don't know why. There was a storm that night. We're assuming that he went back to his community and just they couldn't understand, he felt scared because he was going to lose this community or something. I don't know. But there's a video on the web of one person cognitively disabled, and he was just the star of the group. I mean, he ended up everybody just, I mean, he basically was able to express things in very simple language that everybody would just finally realize, oh my God, that was it. It was a little bit like that movie Being There.
Yeah, and I'll jump in that Marcus, who is one of the trainers in Austria, he has told a lot of stories of people who are very angry or they have something really strong come up in them, and then there can be a transformational process for them. They are heard in this process, and then sometimes um, they come out of it feeling changed, and it does get to that group unity still at the end.
I assume you have to set some time limits for people because you know how some people can dominate a conversation. Do you set time limits for
We
people?
don't, but we don't. There's really no limits at all, except that the facilitator is skilled. So we're gonna, they might say something like, "Hey, listening's hard work here. Give us the headline," or something, some way to help them. Where you're not limiting people. You're helping them be more effective in communicating.
Yeah.
And the facilitator is following the energy in the group. So if there's, if somebody's going on for a long time and there's somebody else where energy is coming from them, the facilitator can kind of make that shift over there is what I found.
Have you found an ideal group size? Is there a limit to how many people, ideally work or not?
Yeah, it's hard to know. 8 or 12 is is great. Um, I say for the Wisdom Council, it's really 12 to 16 is what we're saying, but that's fine. As long as you can get people in a half circle, or I've done 2 rows of half circles, but or 3 rows or something. But if you can get people in a half circle facing 4 charts, you're and you have a chair you can sit in, it's just glorious. I mean, the group can just fly.
Again, if you have a question or a comment, go ahead and raise your hand. If not, I'm going to just keep asking questions.
Good for you.
My next question is about uh, elected officials. How can you get like a group of elected officials in the room and do some of this dynamic facilitation? Because
Yeah,
it
we
seems
don't
like
do
if we
that.
could get some leaders
Yeah.
to have conversations, that might actually move things forward.
One of the problems that I've found is that what we'd have to do is help people become authentic. I mean, they have to become real people. And representatives, by definition, are not real people. So, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I've had, limited experience with elected officials or with, military or with, negotiators or that sort of thing. But they are the hardest to work with because they aren't real. The representative is actually somebody not in the room. They're not a real person. Somebody who's not in the room is actually telling them what to be and say. So if we can close the door and protect them and feel them and get a little bit more extra time, sure, we can work with elected officials, I guess, and help them become human. But the reality is they're not.
Well, they have the facade, right? They got
Yeah.
they have a persona they're trying to project. All right, we
I
have
had
some
one.
hand.
I had one setting. I mean, I'll just tell you an example. One time, I was working with the group of management and the union. Okay, and they met every quarter at some fancy resort, and and I was there to facilitate one of these. Okay, well, I realized really quick, the last thing they want to do is resolve this issue through some kind of breakthrough. They don't want that. They want to keep bringing their spouses to these fancy resorts every quarter. That's what they want. And it was like, oh, well, this isn't really going to work, is it?
All right, we now have some hands up, so we only have a couple minutes left, so let's see if we can get through all of these. Rich, go ahead. Should be
Mute.
able to unmute
Oh,
now.
yeah, I got it unmuted.
Yeah.
What one thing, the concept is great. When I participated in the Occupy movement, as did Cindy, et cetera. But the concept, the people who come to these small meetings would be people who would tend to be the kind of person who would be open to discussion, depending upon how it's
Rich, it's
presented.
randomly selected, Rich.
Huh?
100% random. So we get a polling outfit and they bring people from the blue team, the red team, just a random people. You
Okay, it's
pay
a good
them a
idea. Yeah.
stipend.
Hmm.
And so we
Okay.
get that symbol. Now you're right in terms of the gathering of people that come, to people come to the public audience,
Right.
but you can stay in your MAGA community and just listen online and
Uh-huh.
talk among that group. That's okay.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what I know people face to face are more likely to agree than people on the internet, where you can call people names and no reaction, whatever. But
Yes.
you have a good interaction here.
Yes. It's what we want to do is we want to have a similar spirit to choice creating in the larger community. But I mean, just recently came to the realization, I love dialogue. We can set up dialogue
Yeah. Yeah.
easily, and that's
Hmm.
that's a that's a different quality, but it has a lot of the same spirit, and it allows people to be in resonance and protects everybody.
Hmm. Okay.
Right.
What do you mean by dialogue?
Well, dialogue is like choice creating, um,
Hmm.
but it's an you talk from the heart. You share what your heart, your deepest feelings are, your deepest such in a completely safe environment, so that
Hmm. Hmm.
your the group can build on one another, but the group never comes to actually action plans. They're not
Yeah.
solving
Right.
problems.
Right.
They're just
Okay.
dealing with topics. And so the wisdom council process would would give them the topic, and then they would talk about that in a
Hmm.
safe, in a dialogue, safely contained way.
Okay. When things are done, it's because people have been elected to public office. That's
No,
when
no, that's
actual decisions are implemented.
actually that's a
Yeah.
very, very small. That's in our system that the founders left us. We think that's the answer. Policy. No, in real life, that's not how problems get solved. That's just a small, small thing. I think the level of policy would just get greatly reduced in this.
Okay, well, how does the solutions that you don't come to solutions? So how do you get to the point where solutions are made into
No,
law? They're made into
no,
policy because
dialogue,
that's
dialogue doesn't.
practically that's how things are done
Yes,
in
dialogue
society.
doesn't do solutions, okay? So, but the process, collective solutions, but the wisdom council process does. The wisdom council
Mhm.
process says, here's here's what we think the truth is. We come
Okay.
to the understanding of the truth. Here's what we think, this is what we want, and this is what we're our strategy. This is what we think we need to do. And they present it to the audience, which is face to face and online and broadcast audience, hopefully, and the whole country, really. It's kind of like
Yeah.
and so then the resonance of people then talk in small groups on their reaction to this to the reflection of what to the wisdom council conclusions, and they what happens is there's a building resonance of the whole system to the conclusions of each successive wisdom council. So
Okay.
and so it's really about the whole system conversation and our way of articulating haven't reached conclusions.
Okay. What?
I'm
See?
sorry to interrupt you, Rich, but we
Yeah.
got to kind of wrap it up
Yeah.
here.
Oh, yeah. We're almost
Yeah,
over. Okay.
yeah,
I got
thank
some.
you.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Ken. Thank you,
We are
Cindy.
out of time. Ken, you have your hand up. If it's a quick one, go ahead, because unfortunately I
Yeah,
have to go
it
somewhere.
is a quick one. How can we be part of the audience to one of these things?
Well, we haven't started yet, but you can help us start. We would love
How
to
do we
have
do that then?
one on the ground in your neighborhood as the first one and be there. Yes.
So on your, do you have on your website, is it clear how we could participate in that?
Tell us if it isn't. We'll
And
we'll we'll
Okay.
change we'll change it to
Ken,
make sure it's
you
clear.
can also send me an email, and I will get you connected with us. So
And
Okay.
I will be sending all the links, including their emails, in the follow-up email tonight later on. So,
Thank you.
but I just want to thank you both for being here and sharing all of this. I still have tons more questions, but I'll follow up
Thank you.
because
Thank
I'm a
you.
problem solver. I like to how do we fix this stuff?
Yes.
So, but thank you so much, Jim and Zachary and our audience for hanging around and engaging in this. And again, I'll be sending out all the links in the recording, so you can follow up with Jim and Zach if you're interested in getting something happening in your area, as well as find out more information. Again,
Great.
we will not have a happy hour.